you talk about what is sustainability, really. And I was told this by one of my mentors, and it really stuck with me, that sustainability is social compliance in a way that is fitting of your circumstances. So one of the main passions that I have with Lila Bear is going really deep into the supply chain, the vertical supply chain of what we do. So really questioning now every single element that goes in, every chemical, every the thread, the cotton, where it's grown. And I start very much from, it's almost like a grassroots perspective in that way. So, for example, with this collection, we did, we started thinking about dyeing without using actual dye. So what can you do instead? So I started experimenting with this, tea and turmeric, and everyone's like, you're dyeing with hibiscus and avocado. What? Like, is that a does it stay? Does it smell? And like the first thing that everyone does is like smell the but anyway, we developed this technique and we, wanted to scale it. So then thinking, okay, fine, you can scale that, but who are you scaling to? So then we started working with a women refugee group called Refugee, and they've been learning how to tie-dye, and this is their first, being reintroduced into regular life, and they start doing tie-dyeing, and we're like, okay, well, I wanted to ask them, I'm like, do you know the impact of what you're doing with this dye? And they were like, no, it's just like color, right? But it's like, what does that mean? So it's, then you pass on that education to people and teach them how to do it while scaling the business. So that's one way I look at it. And then on the other hand, on the flip side, it's like, how do you pass that on to the person who's wearing it, right? There is a certain level of sustainability and impact that you can make on someone's life. And this is where fashion actually does get kind of serious. Because when you're in the right outfit and you have that outfit that makes you feel really powerful, your conversations automatically shift. The way that you think about yourself and the way others perceive you is different because you walk differently when you're in an outfit that makes you feel confident, right? So how do you create that and by passing that? And that's sort of the service, I think, that a designer has to society, is making you feel like not only can you take on the world and, all these things, but addressing issues like body positivity. So a lot of my clothes are one size or adjustable sizing, and it's like one size fits everybody, every body. And this is also something that then you can pass on to a future generation. So it's like you're creating something that is made to last, that is, it will carry on with you for, whether you balloon up or shrink down or, get pregnant or whatever it is, that it's like that piece of clothing should be something that is part of your journey and your story. And that's really the impact of a good piece of clothing. I mean, you guys will have that one thing in your closet that it's like you will never leave your closet. That's the thing that is really impactful when it comes to that. And when it comes from a place that you're benefiting the environment or creating positive change in the production of the garment itself, then that's truly when I think a garment or clothing can make an impact through the entire supply chain. This notion that we are still pushing the narrative and sort of asserting our own credibility in the global fashion place. So I think that's why it failed ultimately, is that yes, it's a curation of beautiful African fashion, but who knows enough African fashion in the world that will say, oh my goodness, there's orange culture, there's, my stuff is in there, Lila Bear is in there. So, there's a little bit of a lack of knowledge. And I think that ultimately what would work, in my opinion, is more, again, self-credibility. So each brand standing on their own 2 feet before you go into a group of a collective and a consortium, because you have to identify, create your own identity to be able to then be recognized as someone that, then you're a force to be reckoned with collectively. But if you don't do that in the beginning, then there's nothing that's, you're kind of just trying to associate with each other without actually differentiating your own brand. And to answer about your e-commerce question, direct to consumer is taking over the world. So when we say direct to consumer, we're skipping out all of these middlemen, we're skipping out retailers and going straight to the customer themselves. So we're not going through the wholesaler markets and necessarily, and that's a really, really powerful thing. There are brands in Europe, and there are brands in the States, and slowly we're seeing brands coming out from Africa that are really going moving to this direct consumer model and seeing huge profitability from it. Ultimately, I think that there's a combination and the right alchemy of direct to consumer and really asserting yourself as an individual brand that will ultimately lead to the success of African fashion.